Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Gajananam Bhuta Ganadi Sevitam Kapitta Jambhupalasara Pakshitam Umasutam Shoka Vinashakaranam Namami Vigneshwara Pada Pankajam. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome for the 34th session of DISHA. In today's session, we discuss niṣkāma bhakti, devotion for spiritual ends, as covered in verses 27 to 30 of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, Jnana Vijnana Yoga. Tattvabodha topic of Bhakti Yoga, with emphasis on the second meaning of Bhakti, will also be explained. Srimati Mamata Shankar is the lead speaker of today's session. As always, our revered Guru, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, will introduce us to the topic and later conclude today's presentation with his valuable insights. The teaching quiz will be conducted by Sri Venkatesh Prasad. Before we begin the presentation, we have our usual shloka time. Over to you, Chetana ma'am.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This verse is from Manasa Ullasa, written by Sri Sureshwaracharya, a disciple of Sri Adi Shankaracharya. It is an extensive commentary on Adi Shankaracharya's Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra. This verse was subsequently incorporated as one of the dhyana shlokas of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra. It goes like this: Ishvara Guru Atmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurteye Namaha. Here, Sri Sureshwaracharya says the Lord appears as though divided into threefold forms, Murti Bheda Vibhagine. And what are the three forms? Ishvara Guru Atmeti. Ishvara, Guru, and the student. Here, Atma means the student. They can also be called as the Pramahata, Pramanam, and the Prameyam, because in a Vedantic class, there are three factors involved. One is the student, who is called the Pramata, the one who wants to learn and know. The second factor is the source of knowledge, called the Pramanam. Here, the Pramanam is Guru, who unfolds the Shastras. Though the Shastras are the main source of knowledge, it is not capable of communicating efficiently. But the very same words come alive when conveyed by a Guru. It is like the CD player, which brings alive the music encrypted in the CD. Similarly, when the Guru makes the Shastram come alive, that Guru becomes as much as a Pramanam as the Shastram. And the third factor is the subject matter, called Prameyam. Here it is Ishvara. Now, every student is like an uncupped Dakshinamurti, according to this author. And once the Guru, with the help of Shastra, chisels and removes all the unwanted material, every student is a Dakshinamurti. The teacher, of course, is also a Dakshinamurti, and the subject matter taught is also Dakshinamurti. And therefore, here the author says, Ishvara Guru Atmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine. So the Triputi of Pramatha, Pramana, and the Prameya is nothing but Dakshinamurti alone. Just like in Swapna, we ourselves become the Triputi. In the same way, one Dakshinamurti multiplies into Triputi, Dakshinamurti. But this division is from the Vyavaharika Drishti only. In his original nature, the Paramarthika Swarupam, he is neither the Jiva, nor Ishvara, nor Guru, nor the Shastram. So what is he in his original nature? Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya, one whose nature is all-pervading consciousness. Your Deha means the Swarupam, and the Vyoma means Akasha, or the space. So like the space inside your stomach, the space inside the room, and the space outside pervades everything, so too the reality of Brahman pervades Ishvara, the Guru, and the individual, the Jiva, who is nothing other than Satchidananda Brahman. Therefore, to that Dakshinamurti, I offer my prostrations. Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chetana, for a nice choice of a prayer, which we can make it our daily prayer. Ishvara Guru Atmeti. Ishvara, Bhagavan, the Guru, and myself are none other than Dakshinamurti. And that is both the truth and that is our potential too. That is the greatness of Vedanta, when Vedanta shows you our true nature. And all this is possible because of our gurus. How can we thank our gurus? Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. In today's Disha, we continue the study of the 7th chapter. We are in the concluding part of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. As always, all of us know, each time we study the Bhagavad Gita, each time we look into what we have learned before, our understanding becomes now so much more deeper. Somebody has asked a very interesting question. What is our capital? What do you mean by capital? Capital means what is that which we are born with? And the truth is, we are born with ignorance as our capital. When we come into this world, we have ignorance all round. We have ignorance of worldly knowledge. We have ignorance of spiritual knowledge. We have ignorance of language. But slowly, thanks to our teachers, to our parents, we get knowledge. The highest form of knowledge is none other than self-knowledge or Atma Vidya, because self-knowledge or ignorance, self-ignorance is the cause of all sorrow, and self-knowledge is the cause of all happiness. A few lucky ones come across a guru. And because of a guru, we are able to use all worldly accomplishments as a means and God as the goal. The true God is formless. In the beginning of the 7th chapter, in the 7th chapter, Shri Krishna begins in a very dramatic manner, without any question from Arjuna. You should remember, this is a transition to a new Shatkam. And in this new Shatkam, the whole topics are all different. Shri Krishna, without waiting for any prompting from Arjuna, offers, and through Arjuna to all of us, to introduce his true nature. He says, you can now know God completely. And this is the second verse which says, I shall impart to you jñānam along with vijñānam. I will impart to you my lower nature, which is very evident, and also my higher nature. Gaining which knowledge, there remains nothing more to be known in this life. As we go along, we come to a very important verse. This is the 5th verse. In the 4th verse, Shri Krishna would have introduced his lower nature, or what is aparā vidya. But in the 5th verse, he says, Anya, other than this aparā, prakṛtim viddhi me param. You must know, other than the aparā, you must know something of my higher nature, which is available to all of us as Jiva Bhutam Mahabhavo. And this Jiva, or the consciousness principle in all of us, is that which sustains the whole universe. It is so wonderful to know that we are not ordinary. As body-mind, we are ordinary. But it is this consciousness in us which lends existence to the whole world. Difficult to believe, but this is what Shri Krishna says. Shri Krishna endorses this again in the 13th chapter. In this famous verse in the 13th chapter, which also is a Mahavakya, Shri Krishna says, Kshetrajñam chapi mam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharaj. Kshetrajñam, the one who knows the field of experience, the knower, the ridrik. Chapi mam viddhi, please know. Sarva kshetreshu bharata, not only in me, but in everyone. He adds an important footnote. He says that distinction between kshetra and kshetrajña, in my opinion, is the most important thing we should know. And today, when Mamata will introduce the synopsis of the 7th chapter, in order to understand those concluding verses, you will see so much is this understanding we should have all the time if these verses should become alive. What is the understanding we should have? This is called Drik Drishya Viveka. I am someone other than whatever I can see and experience. Krishna says, whatever you can see and experience is my lower nature or aparā prakriti. And he says, The experiencer, the one who is able to experience everything, is my higher nature or parā prakṛti. This has been repeated to us again and again by our Acharya, Swami Paramarthananda, in the form of two fundamental laws of Vedanta to reveal our true nature. I will repeat again. I, that means the consciousness in me, am other than whatever I experience. Whatever I experience is an object. I, the experiencer, am the subject. Second law is all experienced attributes. That means I see so many things. I see something black, I see something heavy, something light. All experienced attributes belong to the experienced objects and not to the experiencer. If this is understood, immediately we realize our true nature is nirguṇa. I have no limitations in time. That means I am nitya. I have no limitations in space. I am all pervading. I have no limitations with relation to this object. I am there everywhere, even as I manifest through this object or through this body. With this background, let us intently listen as Mamata Shankar will explain the topic allotted to her in today's Disha. Mamata, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ishvara Dhyanam is the main teaching by Lord Krishna in chapter 7. Various subtopics are covered up to verse 27, which have been discussed in detail in previous Disha sessions, and Sir has briefly talked about it just now as well. Quickly revisiting these topics, in the next slide, Ishvara Swarupa Jnanam or knowledge, where Jnanam is Ishvara with name and form or saguṇa Ishvara Jnanam, and Vijnanam referring to the knowledge of the higher formless Ishvara, that is nirguṇa Ishvara Jnana. Followed by Krishna further elaborates on two aspects or features of Ishvara, which is parā prakṛti and aparā prakṛti. Parā prakṛti is the eternal consciousness principle, the higher nature of God, or nirguṇa Ishvara, which is Vijnanam knowledge. Then aparā prakṛti is the lower nature of God, saguṇa Ishvara or jñāna. It is the matter which can neither be created nor destroyed. Ishvara, a mixture of parā and aparā prakṛti, is the cause of the entire universe. In fact, this Ishvara alone has evolved into the universe. In other words, Krishna, an avatara of the Lord, or Ishvara, is appearing as the universe or world. This is highlighted in the verse Rasohamapsu Kaunteya, that is the 8th verse of this chapter. In the next slide, as world is a manifestation of God, who is a mixture of parā and aparā prakṛti, then world also must consist of living beings with parā and aparā prakṛti. The very I of a being, the experiencer of the world, the body, the mind, that I, the observer, the consciousness principle is parā prakṛti. 7.5 verse highlights this, Jiva Bhutam Mahabhavo, and so on. Parā prakṛti, before evolution of the creation, is referred to as Paramatma, and this very same parā prakṛti or consciousness principle, after the manifestation of the creation, pervades every living being and is called Jivatma. Aparā prakṛti, being matter, is anything you experience. World consisting of living and non-living beings is made of matter and is experienceable. Body, mind of living beings are all matter and it falls under aparā prakṛti. Krishna further talks about the cause of samsara due to worldly activities of individual beings and remedy for freedom from samsara. Followed by niṣkāma bhakti, where we worship to seek worldly benefits or benefits related to aparā prakṛti like things, money, name, fame, position, relations, etc. That is artha kama related benefits. And these worldly pleasures is the ultimate goal, with God as means for attaining it is niṣkāma bhakti. Krishna says most of the individuals identify with aparā prakṛti, which appears very attractive, and hence go for saguṇa bhakti. The triguṇātmika maya, that is, three attributes, sattva, rajas, tamas of maya, in varying proportion associated with aparā prakṛti, is responsible for the individual's intellect to be deluded and hence prevents spiritual growth of the individual. Individual beings or jiva is controlled by maya, which cause sheer ignorance of our own higher nature and force us to be in samsara, hence subject to cycle of birth and rebirth. In the verses 27 to 30 of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, that we will be discussing today, we will cover the following topics. Status of individuals who are in samsara cycle, followed by blessed individuals with abundant punya karma, then niṣkāma bhakti and what it actually means. Next slide, sir. And the seed verses for next chapter, that is chapter 8. Chanting the 27th verse, Ichchā dvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. Krishna says, Sarva Bhutani Sammoham Sarge Yanti. That is, individuals or jiva have their higher nature covered by veil of ignorance at the time of sarge, that is, birth itself. Totally unaware of peace and happiness within oneself, the individual's life of extrovertedness starts from the time they are born. The entire world is deluded because of ignorance, never allowing time for self-inquiry. Krishna says, Dvandva mohena. That is, whole world is deluded in the form of dvandva, that is, pair of opposites, caused by raga dvesha, that is, likes and dislikes. For example, as stated by Swamiji, as a baby we are happy and secured with toys. As we grow out of toys, and it could be bikes or cars we would like to procure. Then it could be the computer games, and the list goes on and on. We desperately run after a certain set of object because we like it so much and we acquire it, which could be in the form of sense pleasure, money, gadgets, relationships, etc. And anything we dislike, we say we hate it or scared of it, which becomes the source of sorrow, and we try to get rid of it. That is, the whole life is spent acquiring what we consider as a source of joy and busy getting rid of or avoiding the things that we consider as source of sorrow. As a matter of fact, every sense organ has a like and dislike for its respective objects. But whether or not we fuel these likes and dislikes is up to us. As far as Vedanta is concerned, it does not look upon the world as either the cause of happiness or cause of sorrow. Sorrow and happiness are both centered on us. Self-ignorance being the cause of sorrow, self-knowledge being the cause of happiness. In the next slide, having explained the condition of most people who are trapped in samsara, Sri Krishna now describes about individuals who have purified the mind and developed sharp intellect. Individuals are blessed with Ichchā Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti, which also comes in Lalita Sahasranama, giving us an option to channelize the mind for the attainment of the ultimate goal, which is liberation. There are a few adored ones who have done some punya karma either in the previous janma or in this janma and reduced their papa karmas. Any selfish action done with the sense of I-ness or I with ego attached to satisfy our sense pleasures and not done according to dharma mentioned in the scriptures falls under papa karma or sinful act. Our motive or our intentions behind the selfish actions decides the papa karma. If the motive is purely destructive or hurtful, not upholding dharma, then they are papa karmas. However, the blessed ones, because of the punya karma they do, that is the unselfish actions or selfless service, also known as niṣkāma karma in the form of karma yoga or pancha mahayajnas, they develop a pure or sattvic mind, that is chitta shuddhi, and they have an attitude of Ishvara Arpana Bhavana and Ishvara Prasada Buddhi for every action, which helps to develop a sharp intellect and reduce the likes and dislikes to a great extent. Byproduct of this is sensory attraction towards materialistic world is greatly reduced and gives way for thinking that helps the spiritual journey. That is, so many achievements, so many acquisitions is all wonderful, but it is not giving the required happiness or security. The anxiety, the misery, tension, insecurity continues. So the perception of expecting security, peace, happiness from worldly interactions may need to be revisited. Purified mind gives an individual an opportunity to contemplate on options available, that is, worldly pursuits for arthakama or spirituality. And is it only arthakama in our lifetime, or is there something else in life? Once the contemplation begins, the delusion that world can give security, peace, happiness gradually subsides, and the individual begins to understand that sorrow or happiness are not outside. The problem we face in the world is not outside. That is, being ignorant of our higher nature is a sorrow, and discovering this is the happiness, which means that the challenge is within us. Swamiji quotes Dayananda Swamiji's statement, which reiterates the message. The problem is you, the solution therefore is you alone. So once the pursuit for search of security, peace, happiness is directed towards oneself or inwards, that is when the transformation to become spiritual begins. Krishna says, Te dvandva moha nirmukta bhavati. Once the delusion is gone, and with sharp intellect, they have nitya anitya vastu viveka. Individual realize that there is a higher nature in every individual, which is eternal, all-pervading, and is the same in the Lord as well as all living beings, and is the only source of security, peace, happiness. And such people, Krishna says, with dhrida vrata, that is firm resolve, ma bhajante, they begin to seek me, that is higher nature of Krishna, which is parā prakṛti. That is, they seek the infinite, which is possible because of niṣkāma bhakti, and such people are called niṣkāma bhaktas. Now this takes us to the next question on what is actually niṣkāma bhakti. Chanting the verses 29 and 30, Jara marana mokshaya mamashritya yatanti ye te brahma tadvidhu kritsnam madhyatmam karma chakhilam sadhi bhutadhi daivam mam sadhi yajñancha ye viduhu prayana kale picha mam te viduryukta chetasaha. Niṣkāma bhakti is a bhakti in which an individual uses bhakti for the discovery of parā prakṛti or one's own higher nature. In other words, world is used as a means to discover the ultimate reality, God, the parā prakṛti, that is in all living beings. Krishna says, Sakāma bhakti is the only means to arrive at niṣkāma bhakti. Niṣkāma bhakti is impossible without sakāma bhakti, and sakāma bhakti is incomplete without graduating to niṣkāma bhakti to accomplish the human goal. Krishna reiterates that bhakti, which is niṣkāma bhakti, as the remedy or solution for samsara. However, Vedanta says jñānam is the only solution for samsara problem, which is also reiterated in Bhagavad Gita in 2nd chapter, 4th and so on chapters. This only means that bhakti culminating in jnanam is the solution or remedy for samsara. The series of sadhanas which constitute bhakti, which is elaborated in 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, will show that bhakti is not a particular sadhana, but it is a series of sadhanas which has to culminate in jnana. Niṣkāma bhaktas realize misunderstood I, or associating with aparā prakṛti is the cause of samsara, and properly understood I is the remedy from samsara. Swamiji states rope example, like when a rope is understood and seen as a rope, it is not the cause of fear. But when the very same rope manifests to be a snake, it causes fear and anxiety. Similarly, identifying with our lower nature, that is aparā prakṛti, which is equated to misunderstood I, causes likes and dislikes, or raga dvesha, resulting in experiences involving pain and pleasure, joy and sorrow, so on. In other words, samsara. Discovering our real nature, that is parā prakṛti, is eternal security, peace, and happiness. Once this clarity dawns on us, the journey of knowing myself, that is jñāsu bhakti, begins. In other words, bhakti towards the Lord with an intense desire for knowledge of the self, which is the only remedy for samsara. Krishna says, Jara Marana Mokshaya, that is old age and death, which is well within the realm of time, belongs to samsara. Wise people in the path of jñāsu bhakti work on attaining moksha, which is nothing but immortality or freedom from samsara, by seeking Lord's grace, mam ashritya, which means wise ones go beyond old age and death. Understanding this further, every individual is made of matter, parā prakṛti, and consciousness principle, parā prakṛti, and goes through old age and death. Matter is in the boundary of time, so going beyond old age and death means go beyond matter and time, which means beyond aparā prakṛti, that is discovering parā prakṛti. Krishna says, some rare people, that is jñāsu bhaktas, tad viduhu, in the verse, work to attain parā prakṛti, which is the source of immortality and security, peace, happiness. Elaborating further on this, Swamiji says, people with saguṇa bhakti worship God with name and form, that is saguṇa Ishvara, and are aware of aparā prakṛti, or the lower nature of the God. When they discover the higher nature within oneself, they come to know the parā prakṛti, or consciousness principle within oneself, which is the same as parā prakṛti of the Lord, also known as nirguṇa Ishvara. Krishna also introduces 6 terms or factors which put together is nothing but a mixture of parā prakṛti and aparā prakṛti of God. They are Brahma or Brahman, Karma, Adhyatmam, Adi Daivam, Adi Bhutam, and Adi Yajnam. Krishna says a wise person or Ishvara Gnani, the one who has the knowledge of the self, will know all these 6 factors, and they are ever filled with devotion to God. They are beyond bodily pain and pleasure even at the time of death. Krishna says, Yukta Chetasaha. Such devotees or Gnanis with disciplined mind can remember Viduhu. Viduhu means God or Lord Krishna all the time. That is, even at the time of death, Prayana Kali. And they are niṣkāma bhaktas. On a side note about disciplined mind is training or preparing habitually outgoing mind to aid in turning inwards with disciplines, specifically Upasana yoga, involving various types of meditations like relaxation, concentration, expansion, and value meditations, to name a few. There is an article by Swami Bhajanananda which has a reference to God within us. Here, Sri Ramakrishna uses an example of a police officer who goes about his rounds in the dark with a lantern, which has dark glass on 3 sides in his hands. With that light, he can see others, but they cannot see him. unless he turns the lantern towards himself. In the same way, with the light of the self, we can see external objects, but if we want to see God, we must focus this light inward. The insight from this incident aptly describes niṣkāma bhakti, that is the light of niṣkāma bhakti, which helps in practicing to focus inwards, enables us to see the God within us. The verses 29 and 30th, where the 6 terms, Brahman, Karma, Adhyatmam, and so on, are introduced by Krishna that we just discussed, form the seed verses for the next chapter, that is chapter 8, where Arjuna asks questions about these 6 terms and Krishna gives the teachings for the same. Paraphrasing Swami Vivekananda's quote, which is apt for this context, there is bhakti within you, only a veil of materialistic worldly desires cover it. As soon as this veil of desires is removed, bhakti will manifest by itself. Om Tat Sat iti Srimad Bhagavad Gītāsu Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyāyām Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade jñāna vijñāna yogo nama saptamodhyāyah. Now moving on to Tattva Bodha. First meaning, next slide, sir. First meaning of bhakti is, as mentioned in Tattva Bodha topics, that is devotion to God, which is love related to a higher principle, which is revered and is sacred. In general, in the form of love, and in specific, love towards God has been discussed in detail in the previous DISHA sessions. In this session, we will delve into the topic of second meaning of bhakti. The second meaning of bhakti is bhakti as a course of discipline to achieve the spiritual goal, that is liberation. Scriptures recommend threefold course of discipline or sadhana for the individual or seeker for attaining the highest purushartha or human goal, which is liberation. They are karma yoga, upasana yoga, and jñāna yoga. The word yoga means that which links the sadhaka and the sadhya, that is the seeker and the goal. To convey this idea of bhakti as a course of discipline for the seeker to attain the highest goal, generally the word yoga is added. So bhakti yoga is not an exclusive or separate course of discipline. Bhakti yoga is a necessity. It is a common factor in all the 3 disciplines which we just mentioned. That is, the first stage of bhakti yoga is karma yoga, second stage is upasana yoga, and the final stage of bhakti yoga is jñāna yoga. It is not that bhakti is separately practiced in a separate time, but karma yoga, upasana yoga, and jñāna yoga have to be immersed in bhakti. These yogas help us in the physical, verbal, sensory, mental disciplines to progress in the spiritual path. In karma yoga, the attitude that one enjoys is dedicating all actions to the Lord and accepting the results without resistance for all the consequences of our actions. Therefore, karma yoga without Ishvara Arpana Bhavana and Ishvara Prasada Bhavana is not possible. A karma yogi should necessarily have bhakti all the time because every action is dedicated to the Lord. In Upasana yoga, we have to meditate upon the Lord for developing mental discipline and integration. So it is not possible to meditate upon Lord if we don't have bhakti. Bhakti here includes manasa puja, manasa parayanam, and manasa japa, to name a few. And jnana yoga also involves bhakti. In jnana yoga, we are inquiring into our own real nature, discovering the identity of our real nature, which is nothing but discovering God. Therefore, self-realization or discovery of one's self is nothing but God discovery. Therefore, jnana yoga also involves bhakti. So, at no time is the seeker away from bhakti. Bhakti yoga encompasses all the 3 courses of disciplines or yogas. This is the second meaning of bhakti. Thank you, sir. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Mamta, for covering a very difficult topic, both the Tattva Bodha topic on the second meaning of Bhakti, very clearly done with very nice illustrative slides, and also the topic of the concluding verses of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. When you look at these concluding verses of the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, you will see, unless you have a background of the entire 7th chapter, you will not be able to understand these few verses which Sri Krishna seems to hastily conclude. What is the background which Mamta has already explained? Sri Krishna begins the 7th chapter with a very bold statement: I will teach you my true nature. I will have you come face to face with God. And as he continued through those 4th and 5th verses where he spoke about his lower nature, then he spoke about the higher nature, which is sustaining the whole universe as Jiva, Jiva, Bhuta, and so on. Suddenly, Sri Krishna realizes that unless there is bhakti in our hearts, unless the power of Maya is so much that we are not able to appreciate or be able to do it with our own efforts. And that is why bhakti is so important. And so the rest of the chapter is one of the best chapters that you have on bhakti, which Mamta very nicely explained. Now we are coming to the very concluding verses. In these concluding verses, Sri Krishna realizes that he has already said that I'm going to introduce myself. But then he concludes in a very powerful way. He says, you will know me truly if you know who is Brahman, if you know what is karma, if you will know who is this adhyatma, who is Adi Daiva, Adi Bhuta, Adi Yajna, and so on. Now, none of these things he has touched upon, and therefore it now becomes imperative for us to know what is all these. The Taittiriya Upanishad, the 2nd chapter begins, it's also called Brahmanandavalli, has a very wonderful opening which says, Brahmavid apnoti param. The one who knows Brahman attains to the highest. And that is what Sri Krishna is saying. You should know who is this Brahman, what is Atma, and all these terms. And if these terms are realized, Sri Krishna will also say that you can attain to freedom or mukti while you are alive. So these are these pointers, these 6 terms, if you are able to understand, we don't have to look at what is krama mukti. The whole of the next chapter where Sri Krishna says the importance of remembering God at the time of death. Now that takes you into another path called Shukla Gati or Krama Mukti. But Sri Krishna says if you are clear about these terms, and if you know these terms very clearly, you will be able to attain to Jivan Mukti in this life itself. This is an important quote I will read. Things that matter the most should never be at the mercy of things that matter the least. When unimportant things become important, then important things become unimportant. We lose sight of what is truly important. What is that we value most? We are all born with this gift of this human body. Manushutvam, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha. It is in this chapter, it is said that among the thousands of people, very few people have this inclination. And among those, very few people go up to the very end. And those who go to the very end are those who are able to understand what is Brahma, what is Atma, who is this Adi Yajna, what is Adi Bhuta, what is Adi Daiva, what is Karma. Now, these are the terms which we need to know. And of course, when we enter into the 8th chapter, become the seed for the 8th chapter. In the first few verses, and this will be discussed in the next week, DISHA, where Sri Krishna will very briefly, but give a very significant answer. Also, let us always remember the importance of bhakti. Without bhakti, to get Guru or to get the grace or the Shastra Kripa is impossible. So if you are able to combine jnana and bhakti, our spiritual success is guaranteed. Now let us look into to see how we have understood this chapter. We will have a teaching quiz which will be conducted by Venkatesh Prasad. Venkatesh, please.
Thank you, sir. We have had a wonderful session by Srimati Mamta Shankar, who has covered all the aspects of these verses from 27 to 30, as well as the Bhakti portion in the Tattva Bodha. We will just cement it, what we have learned from our lecture, with the help of teaching quiz. I hope our volunteer, Srimati Vidya, is ready. Vidya, can we start?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll start with the first question. This covers the shloka. Ichhadvesha samuthena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. The delusion of duality, dvandva mohena, is caused by dash and dash. What are the two things that cause this delusion?
Is it likes and dislikes?
Can you be more specific, Vidya?
Desire and hatred?
Yes, it's almost the same. It is Icha and Vesha, which we call desire and hatred. Thank you. Going to the next question, in the same shloka. Here in the shloka, in the second line, we read Sarva Bhutani Sammoham Sarge Yanti Parantapa. Parantapa is Arjuna. Sarva Bhutani Sammoham Sarge Yanti. What does it mean? We have got a choice. At the time of birth itself, every jiva is affected by ignorance. As the man grows, slowly ignorance starts to wane. People around him influence him to see the truth as is. None of the above. Out of these four, which is the correct one?
The first one, at the time of birth itself, every jiva is affected by ignorance.
Absolutely. At the time of birth itself, every jiva is affected by ignorance. Thank you. When we go to the question 3, and we go to the next verse, which reads as Esham tu antagatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mam drudavrataha. In this shloka, the Krishna says here, those who are free from delusion of duality, dvandva moha nirmuktaha, seek me, bhajante mam. How can they do this? In what way they can do this? The delusion is gone, the duality is gone. Now they will be seeking me. What is the way? What is the mode they do? That's the question. The answer in this shloka itself.
By the purification of the mind, by Panchamahayajna.
Exactly. Punya karmanam is nothing but Panchamahayajna, which creates Chitta Shuddhi. By performing virtuous noble actions through Panchamahayajna and purifying the mind. Now, as we go to the next question, in the same shloka, 7.28, here Krishna has used a word dridavrataha. What is the meaning of this dridavrata? The choice are strong penance, B, puja and vrata, C, fasting, D, firm resolve, and E, all of the above.
D, firm resolve.
Exactly. Dridavrata means firm resolve and firm mind. That's the answer. In 7.29, Jaramarana mokshaya mamashrita yatantiye te brahma tad vidhu kritsnam adhyatmam karma cha akhilam. In this, he is introducing 3 technical words. What are those technical words that he has introduced?
Brahma, Adhyatma, and Karma.
Exactly. Brahma, Adhyatma, and Karma. These terms are also explained in 8th chapter. Mamta repeated this more than once just to drill it into our minds. Let's go to the next question. Why should we try for freedom from Jara Marana, decay and death? We are afraid of old age and death. B, to live longer. C, to attain Svarga. D, to know Brahma, Karma, and Adhyatma. Why should we strive?
B, To know Brahma, Karma, Adhyatma.
Exactly. To know Brahma, Karma, and Adhyatma. Thank you. Let's move on to next question, number 7. In this verse, what does this Jara Maranam represents? Does it represent security? Does it represent space? Will it give us freedom? Or is it bound by time? What is it that it represents?
It's bound by time.
It's bound by time. Jara Maranam. Jara is the old age. Maranam is the death. And both the things are bound by time. That's the answer. Question number 8, pertaining to verse number 7.30. Sadi bhuta di daivam mam sadiyagnam cha e viduhu prayana kalepi cha mam te vidur yukta chetasaha. Here again Krishna introducing 3 more technical words. Can you just say what are these 3 technical words?
Adhibhuta, Adhidaiva, and Adhiyajna.
Yes. Sa Adibhuta, Adidaivam, Mam Sa Adhiyagnam. I am the Adhiyagna. I am the Ishvara. I am the force within this. I am the Lord. That is what Krishna says in this. Exactly. Adibhuta, Adidaiva, and Adhiyagna. Let's go to question number 9. In the same verse, Krishna uses a word Yukta Chetasa. What do you mean by Yukta Chetasa? Yukta Chetasa is he one who remembers God to seek benefits, that is Artha Bhakta, or is he the one who remembers God when he is in need, Artharthi Bhakta, or is he one who thinks of God occasionally, or is he one who remembers God even at the time of his death? Yukta Chetasa.
The wise one who remembers God even at the time of his death.
Exactly. One who remembers God even at the time of his death. Thank you. Now we'll go to true or false. We have got a 4 statements which we have to tell us whether it is true or false. Matter and time are inseparable. True or false?
False.
No, Divya, it is true. Matter and time are inseparable. They are intertwined to each other. Next. Krishna introduces 3 technical words each in verse 29 and 30. Is it true or false?
True.
Yes, it's true. Next is these 6 factors and parā, aparā, prakṛti are one and the same. Are they same or they different?
True.
Yes, true. These 6 factors what Krishna introduced in these 2 shlokas are nothing but parā and aparā prakṛti. They are one and the same. Thank you. Next question is performing Panchamahayagna and purifying mind is niṣkāma bhakti.
True.
Yes, it is true. Thank you. Now we will move on to Tattva Bodha topic. Questions on Tattva Bodha topic. The first question is, this is all about the Bhakti. Tattva Bodha topic, we have heard Manta telling about the Bhakti. Now we'll see the questions. The second meaning of Bhakti is that it is a course of discipline consisting of dash, dash, and dash to attain dash. We should remember the slide that Manta showed to us. What is the second meaning of Bhakti?
Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Jnana Yoga.
To attain
moksha.
Exactly, exactly. Very good. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga to attain liberation or moksha. And question number 12. How does Bhakti feature in Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Jnana Yoga? We say Karma Yoga, Upasana, and Jnana are the 3 courses of discipline. How does Bhakti feature in all these 3? In what way it features? That's the question.
In Karma Yoga, all our actions are dedicated to God, Ishwararpana Bhava and Prasada Buddhi. In Upasana Yoga, develop mental discipline through meditation on God, manasa puja, manasa parayanam, and manasa japa. In jnana yoga, this involves self-discovery, which is none other than God discovery.
Excellent, Vidya, excellent. In Karma Yoga, all our actions are dedicated to God. That is Ishvara Arpana Bhava and Prasada Buddhi. In Upasana, it is Manasa Puja, Manasa Parayana, and Manasa Japa. In Jnana Yoga, it involves self-discovery, which is none other than God discovery. Bhakti is an undercurrent in all these three yogas. It is like Antargamini in all these yogas. Let's move on to question number 13 now. A discipline is required to conserve and channelize our Shakti or powers so that we can achieve our highest goal. What are these three types of Shakti or Trividha Shaktis we are blessed with? We have that Shakti, we have to use them. What are these Shaktis? We read this in Saundarya Lahari also about these Shaktis. We read about this. Can you just tell me the three Shaktis?
Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti.
Beautiful, perfect. Ichha Shakti is the power to desire. Kriya Shakti is the power to act. Jnana Shakti is the power to know. Move on to question number 14. Scriptures talk about discipline at 4 levels. Name them. That we need the discipline at 4 different levels. What are these 4 levels?
Discipline at the physical level, verbal, sensory, and mental level.
You are right. That is what we say at the physical discipline, verbal discipline, mental discipline, and the sensory discipline. These are the 4 disciplines that we require. We'll go to the last question now. This is during meditation, we need to focus on 4 aspects of mind to mental discipline. They are, what are these? The 4 aspects of mind. We can also say what are these 4 types of meditation.
First one is relaxation of mind.
Okay.
Second, concentration.
Yes.
Third is expression.
Yes.
And fourth one is refinement.
Exactly. In other words, relaxation of mind is relaxation meditation. Concentration of mind is concentration meditation. Expansion mind is expansion meditation. And refinement of mind is a value meditation. Thank you. Thank you all. Hari Om.
Many thanks to Sri Venkatesh Prasad and team for putting together a very interesting quiz. A profound thanks are due to Dr. Hegde sir for leading us on this spiritual path in the light of Swamiji's teachings. Our gratitude to Srimati Mamata Shankar for explaining very clearly niṣkāma bhakti, the path we all should strive to be on. Special thanks are due to Chetana ma'am for giving us the meaning of this great Mahavakya shloka. Team Param Vedanta thanks each one of you for your active participation and encouraging feedback, making this journey so much more worthwhile. Our next session on Friday, the 11th of November, will be the 121st session of Bhagavad Gita, verse by verse, wherein we continue with verses 13 to 18 of chapter 16, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. We conclude today's session with our usual prayer. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om.